Well, good morning. I am here at the Tunnel Hill Railroad Depot, and I'm here for a specific reason. This is actually sort of a museum now. Back in April of 1862, during the Civil War, a group of Union soldiers led by a civilian by the name of James Andrews went down into Georgia and stole a train called the General. And their goal, their idea was to destroy some of the tracks that allowed provisions to flow into the South. And they were bringing the train back up toward Chattanooga when they were discovered, and there was a 90-mile chase along the tracks. And they passed through Tunnel Hill, which gets its name because there's a tunnel through the hill. They passed through Tunnel Hill, and I think they got to Ringgold. I'll have to go back and look at my notes for that. I'll put something up here on the screen if that's wrong. Before they ran out of fuel and they were captured. And we're going to head up there to the place where they were captured before the end of this video. But I say most of them were captured. Some were able to get away. And the ones that were captured, including James Andrews, were put to death for being spies against the Confederate Army. And so I'm here at this historic spot to look at this tunnel and to learn a little more about this train chase and to find out a little bit more about the history of the area in which I live. Tunnel Hill is just a few miles south of Chattanooga in Georgia. It's about a 25-minute drive from my house. It's not very far. But I have gotten off Interstate 75 at the Tunnel Hill exit and thought I was in Tunnel Hill. That's not the case. Tunnel Hill is a few miles off, more toward Dalton. Dalton's not too far from here. And, it's one of those places where there's just not a whole lot here. So I'm waiting for the place to open. I got here about 9:30. It opens at 10, and we'll see what we can discover. So let's head sort of inside, maybe in a few minutes. Now, behind me here, you can see this bent rail, and this is what they're calling the Sherman neckties. So this was something that was done to make the railroad inoperative. They would pry the railroad up from the wooden ties and put the ties down here below it and set them on fire. And the heat would cause, you could see the long arc here, the weight of the rail itself would cause it to bend down, making it absolutely unusable as a railroad. The tunnel is a half a mile from here, but they tell me that there is a parking spot there. So I'm going to drive down there rather than taking the guided cart. The cart is only for those who actually pay for the guided tour. There are a few things here to see, so we'll go through them as we get to each one. All right, I'm in the tunnel, and I don't know how much I'm going to be able to show here, but because there are little lights that come on. You can see one down here in front of me. That come on as you walk, but it doesn't really allow you to see a lot. But just to put this into context, this tunnel I think is about 1,400 feet long. It's just wide enough for a train. It was built in the early 1800s. It took a few years to build at a cost of about $4 million. I don't know if that's 1800s money or if that's today's money, but it's not cheap. But along about 1925, the tunnel was abandoned because the trains were now too big to come through here. So the tunnel is very dark when the lights are not on, and they're all motion censored. So you can see that while I'm standing here, I'm going to back up a little bit and approach the light again. While I'm standing here, the light goes out. And when it goes out, it's dark. Now, there are some places along here to stop and read things, but as you stand here, the lights may go out again, like that. All right, so I've come all the way through the tunnel and I'm about to walk back, and I'm sure it's much more interesting with a guided tour. But the railroad track is long gone. There's a path here for the golf cart to come through. And there are in the, let's do this, in the program that I have, there are some QR codes that will give you some information about different things here. And I will try to either put the QR codes, or if that links to an online website, I'll put those links in the description. If not, I'll put the QR codes up as an end screen at the end of this video. It won't help you if you're watching on your phone, but maybe it will help you if you're watching on your TV or your laptop or whatever. We're off to see some other stuff. Hopefully it's lit. Okay, well, I made it over here, but even though the map says there's parking here, all the sign says there's no parking here. There's a trail that runs from the museum around the park over here to this house. I'm not going to take that trail today. I have a couple of other stops to make, but also the signs say no photography, no videography. I don't know if that means professional or if that means anybody. But there is a police car parked up here, and I'm not taking any chances. So I'm going to go to the next stop on my agenda, which is the depot in Ringgold. We are just a few miles outside of Ringgold, Georgia, just past the Ringgold Depot. And this is the railroad track that would have run to the Tunnel Hill. You have to remember, this was the track that connected Chattanooga to Atlanta, so it was very, very important. And as Andrews and his men came up here, they ran out of fuel here. This is where they abandoned the train. And again, some of them escaped, some of them were caught and shot or hanged. I don't know. They were killed as spies. There was another handful that were kept alive and traded in a prisoner swap, I believe. If you go to the Medal of Honor Museum in Chattanooga, you will see a display to some of the men who participated in this raid. And I've got one more little stop on the way home that will sort of tie all this together, at least for me. So I wanted to end this video here at the National Cemetery in Chattanooga because they have a memorial to the great locomotive chase and James Andrews, military people who helped him. And this was put up by the Ohio Regiment, I think. And you can see there are a few gravestones here around the edge. These are people who were on that raid. Around the edge around the four sides of the memorial, they are listing the soldiers who escaped, the soldiers who were traded, and the soldiers who were executed. And for the longest time, I would come here to the National Cemetery and I had no idea what this was about. It wasn't until I did a video, I don't know, sometime earlier this year, maybe back in the spring, some of the Civil War sites around Chattanooga. And then it suddenly dawned on me what this was for. And I had to do a little research about the great locomotive chase of 1862.